Politics does not corrupt you. You are already corrupt. Every politician you despise, every movement you fear, every government you oppose is not imposing itself on you. It is responding to you. Manipulation does not begin in campaign speeches or propaganda or media control. It begins in the disorder of your very own soul. Every message that moves you, every promise that seduces you, every fear that controls you is working because something inside you is already broken. Plato understood this 24 centuries ago. He saw that political systems are not external forces that dominate free people. They are mirrors. They reflect the internal chaos of the citizens who create them. Governments do not fall from the sky. They grow from human souls. A state is made of people. And if those people are ruled by fear, by ego, by desire, then the state will be ruled by fear, by ego, by desire. This is the insight that destroys every delusion about politics. You are not a victim of manipulation. You are its source. You are not forced into slavery. You choose slavery because it relieves the tension of having to rule yourself. Politicians do not deceive you with lies. You embrace the lie because the truth demands discipline you refuse to impose. Political manipulation does not come from bad leaders. It comes from disordered souls that bad leaders recognize and exploit. Before you can understand how political systems manipulate the masses, you must understand what Plato called the three parts of the soul. Every human contains three forces: reason, spirit, and desire. Reason is the capacity to think clearly, to pursue truth, to see beyond immediate pleasure and pain. Spirit is your drive for honor, recognition, victory, the part of you that wants to be respected and seen as strong. Desire is your appetite, the raw hunger for pleasure, comfort, possessions, the part that wants to consume without limit. The healthy soul is ruled by reason. Spirit and desire are controlled. Spirit provides courage to pursue what reason knows is good. Desire provides energy but submits to rational limits. This is what Plato called the aristocratic soul, the soul governed by its highest part, the soul that is free because it is structured and kept in check. Most souls are not like this. Most souls are battlegrounds where these forces war without resolution. Whichever side wins that war determines both your character and what kind of political message will move you. It determines what kind of leader you will follow. It determines what kind of government you will build or tolerate or beg for. There are four degraded political groups, four political systems that emerge when reason loses its throne in your soul. Each political group corresponds to a soul type that is vulnerable to a specific form of manipulation. When you understand this structure, you will see that political persuasion is not about convincing rational minds. It is about activating disordered souls. It is about offering relief to internal tension. It is about promising that external power will solve internal weakness. The first level of political degradation Plato described is timocracy, to be ruled by honor. In this paradigm, respect, status, and reputation matter more than truth. In a timocracy, the question is not what is right, but who is winning. Not what is true, but who is strong. Not what serves the good of the people, but what earns glory. The timocratic soul is the soul ruled by spirit, by ego, by the desperate need to be recognized. This is the soul that cannot tolerate being overlooked, the person that measures their worth by external validation, that will abandon reason the moment reason conflicts with pride. Timocratic manipulation works through honor and shame, through status and humiliation, through winning and losing. You do not convince this type of soul with evidence. You do not move it with arguments. You move it by telling it that it deserves respect, that it has been disrespected, that others look down on it, that it must fight to reclaim its position. Every political message built on wounded pride is targeting the timocratic soul. Every appeal to greatness, every promise to restore honor, every claim that you have been humiliated and deserve better, every rallying cry about winning and strength and being number one. These messages do not work because they are true. They work because they relieve the internal pressure of the soul that needs recognition more than it needs truth. Look how this operates in practice. A nation is told it was once great and has fallen. The message does not need to be accurate. It needs to activate the timocratic hunger for status. A leader promises to make you respected again, not to make you wise or virtuous or good, just respected, just feared, just recognized. The timocratic soul embraces this. It has been starving for exactly this promise. It does not matter what policies follow. It does not matter what compromises are made. It does not matter what truth is sacrificed. What matters is that wounded pride has been acknowledged and avenged. In this state, the soul cannot see this. It experiences the manipulation as validation. It believes it is standing up for itself when it is actually kneeling before whoever most effectively strokes its ego. Plato saw this in Sparta. He saw how the entire political apparatus organized around honor created men who would die for glory, but could not think clearly about what actually served the good. The Spartan was brave, but not wise, strong but not free, honored but not truly powerful because he was enslaved to the need for honor itself. The timocratic soul does not ask if a policy is wise. It asks if supporting it makes you look strong. It does not evaluate a leader based on competence. It evaluates based on dominance. The moment you care more about being right than being correct, looking powerful rather than being effective, more about your image than your principles, you are operating from the timocratic soul, and you are vulnerable to anyone who knows how to stroke your ego or wound your pride. As your soul degrades more, you are open to new types of manipulation. The next, deeper level of degradation is oligarchy, to be ruled by wealth. Security and possessions and accumulation become the highest goods. In an oligarchy, the question is not what is virtuous, but what is profitable. Not what serves justice, but what protects property. Not what is noble, but what is safe. The oligarchic soul is the soul that has lost its spirit and now obeys its appetites, but a very specific type of appetite. Not the appetite for pleasure, the appetite for security. This is the soul ruled by fear, the soul that hoards because it cannot trust, that calculates because it cannot risk, that obsesses over what it might lose because it has already lost the confidence to act without guarantee. Oligarchic manipulation works through scarcity and threat, through loss aversion and the promise of protection. You do not move the oligarchic soul with grand visions of the good. You move it by making it afraid. Every political message built on economic anxiety is targeting the oligarchic soul. Every warning that your wealth is threatened, every promise to secure your resources, every claim that others want to take what is yours, every appeal to stability and safety and preservation. These messages do not work because they are logical. They work because they activate the fear that dominates the oligarchic soul. The oligarchic soul does not ask if a proposal advances the common good. It asks if it protects personal wealth. It does not evaluate leaders based on wisdom. It evaluates based on who can guarantee security. The moment you prioritize safety over virtue, you are operating from the oligarchic soul, and you are vulnerable to anyone who can make you afraid of loss. Plato saw this clearly. He saw that the oligarchic city becomes a city divided into the rich who fear the poor and the poor who resent the rich. And both groups operate from the same degraded soul. Both are ruled by their appetites. Both are terrified of scarcity. Both have abandoned reason. The difference is that one has possessions to protect, and the other has possessions to seize. The manipulation is identical. Make them afraid. Promise them security. Tell them their survival depends on your power. The third degraded regime is democracy. Not democracy as a neutral system of voting, but democracy as a psychological state. Democracy as the regime where all desires are treated as equally valid, where discipline is reframed as oppression, where order is called tyranny, where freedom means the absence of hierarchy within the soul. The democratic soul is the soul where desire has fully taken over, but without the focus of the oligarchic soul. This is the soul of undisciplined desire, the soul that wants everything and commits to nothing. Plato describes the democratic soul with brutal precision. He says it treats all pleasures as equal. It pursues one desire today and another tomorrow. It calls this freedom. It calls this liberation. It calls this authenticity. But what it really is chaos. The democratic soul is not free. It is enslaved to whatever craving is loudest at the moment. It mistakes the absence of internal governance for liberty. It confuses disorder with autonomy. The democratic soul does not experience this as slavery. It experiences it as exploration, as openness, as refusing to be confined by narrow standards. It prides itself on not judging, on accepting all paths as equally valid, on treating structure itself as oppression. But Plato saw that this apparent freedom is actually the most subtle form of bondage. You are not free when you cannot resist any desire. You are not liberated when every appetite has veto power over reason. You are not autonomous when you are blown by whatever craving is strongest in the moment. Democratic manipulation works by validating every impulse, by telling people that their desires are inherently legitimate, that discipline is oppression, that limits are violence, that structure is control. You do not move the democratic soul by appealing to reason. You move it by telling it that it deserves to feel good, that its feelings matter more than truth, that questioning its desires is an attack on its identity. Every political message that says you should not have to sacrifice, should not have to struggle, should not have to submit to any hierarchy, including the hierarchy of reason over appetite, is targeting the democratic soul. Every promise of freedom without responsibility. Every claim that your desires are being suppressed. Every argument that standards are oppressive. These messages do not work because they are wise. They work because they offer permission to remain disordered. Plato saw that democracy as a soul state inevitably collapses into tyranny. And this brings us to the fourth and final degraded political regime, tyranny, the rule of a single dominant appetite. The democratic soul wants everything but commits to nothing. The tyrannical soul wants one thing with such intensity that everything else is sacrificed to it. This is the soul ruled by a master idea, by a craving so powerful that reason is completely extinguished. The tyrannical soul is not free. It is the most enslaved soul possible. It has become the servant of a single desire. Plato shows exactly how this transformation occurs. The democratic soul lives in chaos. Every desire gets equal weight. No hierarchy, no order, no principle to organize the competing hungers. At first, this feels like freedom, but over time, the chaos becomes unbearable. The soul cannot function without some organizing principle, and if reason will not provide it, appetite will. One desire begins to dominate. One craving becomes so loud that all others are silenced. The soul that refused all hierarchy finally accepts one. But it is not the hierarchy of reason over appetite. It is the hierarchy of one appetite over all others. This is the birth of the tyrannical soul. This is the soul ruled by a lawless desire, a desire that recognizes no limits, that sacrifices everything to its own satisfaction. The tyrannical soul is not pursuing pleasure in general. It is pursuing one specific thing with such intensity that family, friends, health, truth, virtue, everything else becomes instrumental to that single goal. This is addiction. This is obsession. This is the complete victory of compulsion over choice. Tyrannical manipulation works through panic and craving, through the promise that one desire will be satisfied if you surrender everything else. You do not move the tyrannical soul with arguments. You move it by offering relief from the unbearable tension of the dominant appetite. You promise that your power will feed their hunger, that your violence will ease their fear, that submission to you is the only path to satisfying the one thing they cannot stop wanting. Every political message built on crisis and emergency, and the need for total commitment is targeting the tyrannical soul. Every claim that normal rules must be suspended, every promise that absolute power will solve absolute need, every demand that you abandon reason and trust in a single leader or movement or solution. These messages do not work because they are sound. They work because they activate the desperate tyrannical soul that will trade anything for relief. The tyrannical soul experiences its enslavement as necessity. It does not recognize that it is ruled. It believes it is simply responding to reality. Plato understood this perfectly. He saw that the tyrant is not the most powerful man, but the most enslaved. The tyrant is ruled by a passion he cannot resist. The tyrannical citizen is ruled by a fear or craving so intense that freedom becomes unbearable. They beg for the tyrant because the tyrant promises to take responsibility, to remove choice, to simplify the chaos. This is the core insight. This is what destroys every naive belief about political manipulation. People are not manipulated by lies. They are manipulated by relief. The effective political message is not the one that tells the most convincing lie. It is the one that reduces the internal tension of the disordered soul. It is the one that offers external structure to replace the internal structure that reason should provide, but does not. The timocratic soul is manipulated by messages that soothe wounded pride. The oligarchic soul is manipulated by messages that promise security. The democratic soul is manipulated by messages that validate every desire. The tyrannical soul is manipulated by messages that promise total satisfaction of the master appetite. None of these manipulations work through rational persuasion. They work through psychological relief. This is why fighting manipulation with facts is useless. This is why debunking lies does not free people. This is why presenting evidence to someone in the grip of political delusion almost never changes their mind. You are trying to reach their reason, but their reason is not in control. You are speaking to the part of the soul that has already lost the war. Think about what happens when you present facts to someone whose soul is ruled by fear. You show them data. You demonstrate that their anxiety is not justified by objective risk. You prove that the threat they fear is exaggerated or false, and they do not change their mind. They find new threats to fear. They reinterpret your evidence. They attack your motives. not because they are stupid, but because you are trying to reason with appetite. You are trying to use logic against a psychological need that exists independent of logic. The same applies to every disordered soul. Present facts to the timocratic soul, and it will ignore anything that threatens its status. Show evidence to the democratic soul, and it will reject anything that demands discipline. Offer proof to the tyrannical soul, and it will dismiss anything that does not feed its master passion. The disorder is not in their beliefs. The disorder is in the structure of their soul. And until that structure changes, no amount of information will matter. Plato saw this. He saw that the disordered soul experiences compulsion as choice. The timocratic soul believes it is choosing honor when it is actually enslaved to ego. The oligarchic soul believes it is choosing security when it is actually enslaved to fear. The democratic soul believes it is choosing freedom when it is actually enslaved to appetite. The tyrannical soul believes it is responding to reality when it is actually enslaved to a single, overwhelming craving. They do not experience their condition as slavery, because slavery is all they know. A soul that has never been ruled by reason does not recognize the absence of reason as a loss. It experiences the chaos as normal. It experiences the manipulation as persuasion. It experiences the compulsion as preference. This is the trap. This is why political manipulation is so effective. It is not imposing something foreign on people. It is activating what is already there. It is speaking the language of the disordered soul. It is offering the relief that the disordered soul is already desperate for. The manipulator does not need to convince you of anything. He only needs to recognize what already rules you and promise to serve it. Every political regime Plato described emerged because the souls of the citizens made it inevitable. Timocracy emerges when honor matters more than truth. Oligarchy emerges when security matters more than virtue. Democracy emerges when desire is treated as its own justification. Tyranny emerges when a single appetite or fear dominates everything else. The regime is not the cause. It is the effect. It is the political manifestation of the psychological state that was already dominant. You cannot fix politics by changing politicians. You cannot fix it by debunking propaganda. You cannot fix it by crafting better arguments or exposing more lies, because the problem is not out there. It is in here. It is in the soul that has lost its internal order. It is in the person who does not want to face the discipline that self-mastery requires. The warning is brutal. Political tyranny is the final stage of psychological collapse. It is what happens when the soul has degraded so completely that freedom becomes unbearable and slavery becomes desirable. The tyrant does not force himself on unwilling subjects. He is invited. He is begged for. He is demanded by souls that cannot tolerate the responsibility of ruling themselves. The only solution is the one no one wants to hear. Subscribe to this channel and learn how to let reason rule your soul and bring order to your life. Master your appetites instead of being mastered by them. Recognize when your spirit is demanding validation and refuse to obey it. See through the messages that target your disorder. Understand that every political appeal that bypasses reason and activates fear or pride or craving or desire is not persuading you. It is exploiting you. This is the path Plato laid out. The path of philosophy. Not philosophy as academic theory, but philosophy as internal warfare. The deliberate, violent, patient effort to establish reason as the ruling power within yourself. To force spirit into service of what reason commands. To discipline appetite so it obeys instead of dominates. This is not easy. This is not comfortable. This is not the path most people will choose, but it is the only path to freedom, real freedom, not the chaos of democracy where every appetite gets a vote, not the comfort of oligarchy where security replaces virtue, not the validation of timocracy where honor matters more than truth, not the relief of tyranny where a master tells you what to do. Real freedom is internal. It is the freedom of the soul that rules itself, the freedom to act according to reason instead of being dragged by compulsion. The cure is not better rulers, it is better ordered souls. The defense against manipulation is not media literacy, it is psychological transformation. The answer to political chaos is not smarter arguments, it is disciplined minds. Plato was clear. The just city can only emerge from just souls, and the just soul is the soul where reason rules absolutely. This is the standard. This is the demand. This is what it costs. You must become ungovernable by anything except reason. You must refuse to be moved by appeals to pride. You must refuse to be controlled by fear. You must refuse to be seduced by the promise that your desires are inherently valid. You must refuse to trade your internal sovereignty for external relief. Most people will not do this. Most people will continue to be ruled by spirit or appetite or fear or craving, and they will continue to be manipulated. They will continue to respond to messages that activate their disorder. They will continue to believe they are making free choices when they are simply obeying the loudest voice inside a chaotic soul. They will continue to blame politicians and media and systems when the problem is the absence of self-mastery. But you are not most people. If you have watched this far, you are capable of seeing the trap. You are capable of recognizing the disorder within yourself. You are capable of choosing the harder path. The path of reason, the path where you fight to establish internal hierarchy, where you refuse to let desire make decisions, where you refuse to let spirit rule through ego, where you force yourself to think even when feeling is easier. This is what it means to be free, not to do whatever you want, but to want what reason commands, not to follow every impulse, but to rule every impulse according to truth, not to express yourself, but to master yourself, not to validate your desires, but to discipline them in service of the good. This is the war. This is the only war that matters, the war for control of your own soul. Plato saw it clearly. Political tyranny is born from psychological tyranny, and psychological freedom is the only defense. Order your soul, let reason rule. Become immune to manipulation by becoming internally sovereign. The tyrant cannot rule the man who has already established reason as tyrant within himself. The demagogue cannot move the soul that has already mastered its own chaos. The manipulator cannot exploit the person who has recognized and defeated the disorder that manipulation requires. This is the call, not to fight better political battles, but to win the internal war, not to find better leaders, but to become a better soul, not to decode lies, but to establish truth as the ruler within yourself. Order your soul, let reason reign. Become free by becoming disciplined. Become powerful by becoming internally sovereign. Become ungovernable by mastering yourself. The choice is yours. The disorder is yours. The potential for order is yours. Choose reason. Impose hierarchy. Let the highest part of you rule absolutely. Everything else is slavery dressed as freedom. Order your soul and win the only war that matters. Rule yourself before someone else does.